Seneca said, "He robs present ills of their power who has perceived their coming beforehand." Imagine waking up every morning and visualizing your worst fears: the loss of your wealth, your loved ones leaving, public humiliation, even death. Sounds dark, doesn't it? But this practice is not new. It is ancient, it is Stoic, and it is powerful. It's called Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of evils. This practice is one of the cornerstones of Stoic mental discipline. It is not about being pessimistic. It's about being prepared. Most men wait for disaster to strike before they build their strength. But the Stoic trains before the storm, so when it arrives, he doesn't flinch. This is the power of Premeditatio Malorum, the ancient Stoic practice of imagining the worst so you can rise above it. In ancient Rome, Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus walked through the fire of life with calmness, not because their lives were easy, but because their minds were prepared. They practiced a radical concept. Meditate on your worst fears: poverty, loss, betrayal, exile, even death, and rehearse them in advance. That way, when these moments arrived, they wouldn't destroy you. Instead, they would reveal you. In today's world, this principle is more powerful than ever. We live in a time of false comfort, dopamine addiction, and constant distraction. Most men are so disconnected from discomfort that the smallest inconvenience feels like a tragedy. They've been taught to chase pleasure and avoid pain, but that path makes you fragile. It robs you of your masculinity. It leaves you mentally naked when life punches you in the face. This video is your wake-up call. We will explore 12 Stoic rules that teach you how to expect disaster and stay calm. Use pain as preparation, not punishment. Detach from outcomes and live with power. Rebuild yourself when everything falls apart. Walk into the fire with a steady gaze. Why you must train for the storm. The power of thinking the unthinkable. These rules are ancient, yes, but they've never been more needed. Because in a world that blindsides the weak, the man who expects the worst becomes untouchable. Watch this video till the end, not for entertainment, but for transformation. Now let's begin. Rule 1. Visualize the fall to rise stronger. The first rule of Premeditatio Malorum is to see it before it happens. Before every major battle, the Stoic warrior prepares himself by imagining loss, betrayal, pain, and hardship, not to become anxious, but to become immune. In your life, do the same. Visualize losing your job, getting rejected by someone you love, facing betrayal from a trusted friend, losing physical health. You don't do this to attract negativity. You do it to train your mind. The Stoics believe that imagining adversity makes the real thing feel like a repetition, not a surprise. Seneca said, "Rehearse them in your mind: exile, torture, war, shipwreck. All the terms of our human lot should be before our eyes. When you rehearse hardship, you steal its power. Your emotions become tempered, your mind becomes alert, and your soul becomes strong. This mindset is not meant to make you dark. It's meant to awaken your inner fire, because when life collapses, you have already built a shelter in your mind. You will rise, not because life became easier, but because you became unbreakable." Rule 2. The emotional vaccination principle. Premeditatio Malorum is like a vaccine for the soul. Just as a vaccine exposes you to a weakened form of the virus to build immunity, Stoics believe that mentally exposing yourself to adversity builds emotional strength. Most people walk through life with fragile peace. The moment things go wrong, they collapse. But the Stoic doesn't wait to be surprised. He prepares. He conditions his mind in advance. So when pain arrives, he doesn't react, he responds. Try this. When entering a relationship, mentally prepare for the possibility it may end. When starting a business, consider its failure as a possibility. When someone praises you, Remember, their favor could turn to criticism. You will love more wisely. You will work more bravely. And you will never be at the mercy of false hope. By exposing yourself to discomfort in your mind, you train your nervous system to remain calm when discomfort arrives in reality. This is not fear, it is foresight. You are not becoming paranoid. You are becoming bulletproof. Rule 3. Expect the unexpected, always. We suffer more not because life is hard, but because we expect it to be easy. Premeditatio Malorum flips the expectation. Instead of waking up and hoping everything goes smoothly, wake up and expect chaos. If you are prepared for blows, you won't be knocked off balance by them. This doesn't mean being negative. It means being prepared. Expect traffic jams. Expect betrayal. Expect technical failures. And when things do go smoothly, you feel grateful instead of entitled. Gratitude grows. Entitlement dies. Life stops feeling like a series of disappointments and starts feeling like a battlefield you're trained for. Premeditatio Malorum shifts your center of gravity. Instead of being pushed around by life, you push back, not with anger, but with acceptance and clarity. Rule 4. Neutralize emotional triggers. Modern life is full of triggers. A single comment can ruin your day. A glance can spark jealousy. A post can ignite rage. The Stoic trains himself to strip emotional weight from events. Ask, what if she leaves? What if they betray me? What if I lose? Prepare yourself to say, I expected this. I am not broken by it. I remain upright. Premeditatio Malorum teaches you to observe emotions without being owned by them. This is the practice of emotional detachment without emotional absence. You feel, but you are not ruled. You hurt, but you do not shatter. When you anticipate pain, you lessen its blow. When you make peace with loss, you disarm fear. When you master your reactions, you master your reality. Rule 5. Discipline through disaster. Most people only develop discipline in comfort, but the Stoic seeks growth through imagining discomfort. Premeditatio Malorum builds proactive discipline. Visualize being broke. Now save money. Visualize being overweight. Now train your body. Visualize being humiliated. Now train your pride to stay silent. Disaster becomes your teacher. And in every pain you mentally rehearse, there is a lesson in strength. Every imagined disaster is an opportunity to rise, not later, but now. When you rehearse failure, you train resilience. When you rehearse grief, you discover grace. When you rehearse rejection, you find self-respect. This is the path of the Stoic warrior. To seek discipline, not when life demands it, but before. So when a storm arrives, you don't pray for it to pass. You walk through it like it was designed for you. Rule 6. Use fear as a foresight tool. Fear is often misunderstood. In modern life, fear is seen as a sign of weakness. But in Stoicism, fear is a guide, a signal pointing us toward preparation, action, and wisdom. The Stoics did not try to eliminate fear entirely. Instead, they transformed it into something useful. They believed that fear, when confronted rationally, could be turned into clarity. Premeditatio Malorum teaches us to ask, what is the worst that could happen? Most of us avoid this question. We run from it, but the Stoic faces it head-on. If you fear being abandoned, imagine it. If you fear poverty, rehearse it in your mind. If you fear criticism, invite it into your thoughts. By doing this, you begin to strip fear of its false power. You replace vague anxiety with clear awareness. You transform dread into preparedness. Seneca said, "He is most powerful who has power over himself." Now ask yourself, can you survive this fear? Can you adapt to it? Can you even grow from it? Fear becomes smaller when it becomes specific. The mind fears the unknown more than the painful. Once something is visualized, named, and studied, it becomes a lesson, not a threat. So, instead of letting fear drive impulsive action or paralyze your goals, use it as a compass. What you fear often shows where your growth lies. What you fear losing shows what you overvalue. With Premeditatio Malorum, you make fear your student, not your master. And once you stop being afraid of fear itself, you walk into life like a man who cannot be cornered. You won't always feel ready, but with this rule, you will always be prepared. Rule 7, Emotional Death Rehearsal. Seneca, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, urged us to rehearse the loss of everything we love, not because he was cynical, but because he knew the truth. Everything is borrowed. Marcus Aurelius said, "You may leave this life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." Premeditatio Malorum invites us to walk through the mental graveyard of our attachments. It tells us to imagine life without the people we love, the comforts we cling to, the body we live in, even the breath we're taking at this very moment. Yes, it sounds grim, but that is because we are not used to thinking clearly about impermanence. Imagine your closest relationship ending tomorrow, your business failing unexpectedly, your health deteriorating with no warning, your life ending tonight. Would you still speak the same way to others? Would you still waste hours on distractions? Would you still wait for someday to begin living fully? This rule is not about dwelling in sadness. It is about awakening your urgency, your gratitude, your presence. When we mentally rehearse death of others or ourselves, we strip away the illusion of permanence. We stop acting as if we own time, as if love is guaranteed, as if pain is avoidable. The man who practices emotional death becomes free, not cold, but unshaken, not heartless, but whole. He treasures what he has. He speaks with intention. He moves through life with humility, knowing that all of it can be gone in an instant. In that space, you don't just endure life. You finally start living it. Rule 8. Turn misfortune into mental muscle. Life doesn't ask for permission before it strikes. It just does. And those who are unprepared collapse. But for the Stoic, every blow from life is a cue to grow. Not later, but now. Premeditatio Malorum is not just the anticipation of suffering. It's the integration of suffering into your mental strength. Seneca said, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." Most people complain when challenges arrive. They ask, "Why me?" The Stoic asks, "How can I use this?" Imagine every setback in your life, every breakup, failure, loss, betrayal, as a weight in the mental gym. Heartbreak teaches emotional sovereignty. Failure teaches redirection. Rejection builds humility and patience. Death sharpens the appreciation of life. Your suffering becomes fuel, not an excuse. This principle is a direct challenge to modern comfort culture. Today, people are taught to avoid pain, avoid risk, avoid anything that challenges their identity. The Stoic does the opposite. He stares misfortune in the face and extracts wisdom from it. You don't become strong by reading about Stoicism. You become strong by practicing in the fire. When life hits you, remember, this is your test. You can cry, or you can craft yourself. You can whine, or you can weaponize your wounds. Premeditatio Malorum teaches you to lift every burden with grace. You stop fearing hard days because you know that's when you build your core. So the next time disaster visits, don't shrink. Stand tall. Repeat to yourself, this is the moment I was made for. Rule 9, build a fortress of focus. Distraction is the modern enemy of calm. Every ping, every notification, every demand on your attention fragments your inner world. The Stoic understand that a man who is easily distracted is a man easily disturbed. Premeditatio Malorum, at its core, teaches you protect your mind like a sacred fortress. And to do that, You must rehearse loss of control, not just external things, but internal states. Imagine this. You sit to meditate, and noise surrounds you. Your phone dies in the middle of a work sprint. People around you demand your attention endlessly. These moments feel like attacks on your peace. But the Stoic reframes them. He says, this is training. Focus is not something you find. It is something you forge. You build it by confronting the interruption, resisting indulgence, and disciplining your response. Marcus Aurelius said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Premeditatio Malorum allows you to anticipate chaos and choose presence anyway. You learn to protect your mind like a warrior guards a kingdom. Ask yourself daily, what could hijack my attention today? How will I respond to that hijack? By premeditating the breakdown of focus, you become a master of it. In a world drowning in noise, the man who can remain calm, centered, and clear becomes rare and unshakable. Let your mind become your sanctuary, not because it's untouched by the world, but because it has been trained to thrive in it. Rule 10. Accept the fall before it happens. Control is the illusion that creates the most suffering. We believe that if we plan well enough, love hard enough, or work long enough, life will obey. But Stoicism tears through that illusion with a calm blade. Epictetus said, the chief task in life is simply this, to identify and separate matters so that I can say clearly to myself which are externals not under my control and which have to do with the choices I actually control. Premeditatio Malorum teaches us to mentally accept that we will fall, not because we're weak, but because life is chaotic. A storm doesn't ask who it hits. A fire doesn't care what it consumes. To rehearse loss, betrayal, disaster, and grief is not to invite them, but to strip them of surprise. What if you lost your job tomorrow? What if your business collapsed next week? What if your reputation was slandered without truth? Most people would spiral. But you'd already walked through that fire. In your mind, you'd already suffered the sting and felt the edge. You'd say, I knew this was possible. I didn't expect comfort. I expected life. This level of acceptance changes everything. When you expect to fall, you walk with a different posture, not afraid, but ready. It does not make you emotionless. It makes you unshakable. And in today's world, where so many men are built like glass and shattered by rejection, failure, or misfortune, the Stoic becomes a rare breed. He who has rehearsed the worst becomes a calm within the storm. He doesn't beg for an easy life. He sharpens himself for a hard one. And because of that, he becomes a man others look to when their own world begins to fall. Rule 11. Find freedom in the fire. True freedom isn't escaping chaos. It's thriving inside it. The modern man believes that happiness comes from avoiding pain, securing comfort, and predicting outcomes. But the Stoic man, he walks in the fire because he's prepared for its heat. Seneca said, a gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials. Premeditatio Malorum is not merely a technique for calm. It's the forging of inner liberation. It breaks your dependency on things going your way. Think about this. If you expect betrayal, loyalty becomes a gift, not a demand. If you expect failure, success becomes a bonus, not an entitlement. If you expect suffering, joy becomes pure, not tainted by fear of its end. When you've mentally rehearsed the worst, you stop clinging, you stop pleading, you stop becoming a slave to circumstance. Instead, you become grounded in principle. You choose integrity when no one's watching. You choose patience when nothing's working. You choose gratitude when everything's falling apart. That's freedom. Not the freedom to do whatever you want, but the freedom to remain who you are regardless of what happens. Life will burn you, but if you've practiced burning in your mind, the real flames won't own you. You'll walk out of them scarred, but standing. The Stoic doesn't fear the fire. he becomes a fire. So when life throws you into the storm, don't run. Smile. Say, I've been here before in thought. I'll endure it in flesh. That's not delusion. That's discipline. And it's how you finally become untouchable. Rule 12. Prepare to lose yourself. At the heart of Premeditatio Malorum lies the boldest idea of all, to imagine not just the loss of things or people, but the loss of who you think you are. Seneca said, "He who fears death will never do anything worthy of man who is alive." Most men are terrified of becoming unrecognizable, losing their identity, losing their title, losing their role. But in a world of change, holding on to an identity too tightly becomes your prison. The Stoic walks through the possibility of total reinvention. What if you had to start over with nothing? What if your career disappeared? What if no one knew your name tomorrow? Would you still know yourself? Would you still walk with dignity? Would you still find a reason to wake up? Premeditatio Malorum is not about fear. It's about freedom. Freedom from a fragile shell you build around who you think you are. When you rehearse the collapse of identity, you build something deeper, character, because roles change. Names fade, but virtue, wisdom, courage, those are eternal. This rule demands that you kill the ego before the world does, that you get comfortable with rebirth before you're forced into it. You are not your job. You are not your possessions. You are not even your name. You are what remains when everything else is stripped away. And when you meet that version of yourself in imagination, you prepare to walk through real loss without losing your soul. The Stoic doesn't just rehearse external disaster. He rehearses internal collapse. And because of that, he becomes a man that nothing and no one can destroy. He doesn't fear losing himself, because he's already met who he is without the world. Final Stoic advice: become untouchable, not because you're unbroken, but because you prepared. If you made it this far, you already understand something most people don't. Calm is not a gift. It's a skill. And like all skills, it must be trained. Premeditatio Malorum is that training. It's not morbid. It's not pessimistic. It's your armor. In a world that blindsides men with betrayal, hardship, failure, loss, and chaos, those who anticipate the storm don't flinch when it comes. You're no longer just reacting to life. You are commanding your inner fortress. These 12 rules are more than philosophy. They are your discipline, your spiritual reps, your mental cold showers. So now ask yourself, will you continue living in fragile hope? Or will you rehearse the darkness until it can't shake you? If this video resonated with you, if you feel something shifting inside you, then this is your invitation. Subscribe to Stoic Desire. This is not just a channel. This is a place for those becoming unbreakable. We dive deep into ancient wisdom, psychological mastery, emotional control, and modern masculinity. If that's your path, walk it with us. And remember, you were not born to be soft. You were born to be steel. Face the storm, prepared. And when it hits, smile. You saw it coming.